Welcome back to the Vegan Trap House podcast. My name is Roger. Thank you for joining me today. Today we're going to dive deep into a topic that means a lot to me, right? Today's episode is going to be talking about cannabis and its use as a harm reduction tool for addiction recovery. Something that I personally experienced, right? I want to start this off with saying addiction is a complex issue and it affects millions of people all around the world every single day. It is non-discriminatory, so it will affect every class, every gender, every race, everybody. And if it's given the chance, it will kill you, right? I lost my mother, the person I loved the most in my entire life, to addiction of cocaine and alcohol, right? The weight of that situation pushed me to explore alternative methods of recovery, including the use of cannabis. For me personally, cannabis has been a critical tool in my journey to recovery. It's helped me with my withdrawal symptoms early on in my recovery. It helped me manage my pain, my depression, and it keeps me calm when I have a panic attack or an anxiety attack in real high stress periods, right? But my personal experience is not unique to the situation. There's ample research that shows how cannabis can be an effective tool in overcoming a drug addiction to harder drugs like opioids and cocaine. It really helps with the withdrawal symptoms. It helps with nausea, insomnia, anxiety, pain, depression, things that pharmaceuticals won't do, right? Or get you addicted to another one, right? Despite the mounting evidence that cannabis is useful in recovery, there's still a ton of misconceptions surrounding cannabis use, right? Particularly, like I said, when it comes to addiction recovery, it's viewed as a gateway drug, right? However, in my opinion, and however, honestly though, contrary to popular belief, cannabis in studies has been shown to decrease the likelihood of using harder drugs. While it is true that you can get addicted or dependent, I don't want to say addicted, right? You can get dependent on anything, especially things like cannabis, right? The risk pales in comparison to the risk of addiction, right? And that's what harm reduction is. Harm reduction understands that the human being is a nuanced character and that we're all different. So what works for me might not work for you, and what works for you might not work for me. That's where abstinence-based only recovery loses me. It doesn't look at the person as an individual. It only looks at them as like, you don't do this, and that means you're sober. And I just think sober is a spectrum, right? Furthermore, research has found that medical cannabis laws, states that have a medical cannabis law, have a lower annual opioid overdose mortality rate compared to those without a medical cannabis law, right? Up to like 25% have a lower mean annual opioid overdose rate. And mortality, these people are dying less in medical states, right? In still restricted states like Texas, the numbers are through the roof with the amount of people that are dying from like heroin and fentanyl, whatever. This highlights the potential use of cannabis in recovery. I want to be clear. Cannabis is not a one-size-fits-all solution, right? But it is always important to have these options available to people regardless, right? Because it might not work for you doesn't mean that it might not work for someone else. That thinking is what kept me away from using cannabis initially as a addiction recovery tool. When I embraced it, my world changed, right? As more states continue to legalize cannabis, there's been an increase in the research into its therapeutic applications. This has led to a greater understanding of how cannabis can be utilized in recovery and more options for those seeking alternative forms of medicine, right? It's crucial to improve the access to cannabis. That's why voting for cannabis laws and decriminalization laws, especially locally, is super important. In particular, individuals who have experienced homelessness or addiction are predisposed to relapsing or being an addict in general, right? And they need resources, right? And we want to help them on their recovery journey by providing things like clean needles and fentanyl testing strips and hemp isolates and stuff like that, right? And that's where we come in, like I said, that's where we come in. As Hash Vegan Eats, we are a harm reductionist space. We use vegan food, which is a harm reduction approach to eating, and non-alcoholic cocktails, which is a harm reduction approach to alcohol addiction, right? We also provide a safe space for people just to come and relax, very welcoming environment for individuals who have struggled with addiction or homelessness, right? We focus on delivering delicious plant-based food that just happens to be vegan, right? And amazing cocktails that just happen to be non-alcoholic. We want to provide support and resources for people who are trying to explore cannabis as a harm reduction tool. We believe that creating supportive communities can help every individual on their journey to recovery. I think having those available opens the door to the conversation, which allows people a better chance at successful recovery. In conclusion, cannabis can be a useful tool in addiction recovery. It's essential to have access to alternative forms of treatment, particularly for those who have struggled with addiction in the past, like myself. As always, stay curious, stay open-minded. Thank you for joining me on the Vegan Trap House podcast. My name is Roger Sanchez, and I'll see you on the South Side. I love you so much. You are worthy of recovery, and you're worthy of happiness. I love you, San Antonio and the world. Peace and blessings.